thing about exercise for diabetics is that it goes way beyond blood sugar control, because regular exercise can also reduce your risk for the complications of diabetes, the things we actually worry about, right? Things like cardiovascular disease, which is a significant concern for someone with diabetes. See, we don't just care about sugar to care about sugar. We care about the complications that happen because of it. Hello, hello, hello. Hi, beautiful friends, my Diabesity fam. How are you doing today? Well, I'm doing fantastic. Actually, really fantastic. I just got back from North Carolina with our family, and we went with my husband and his cousins and their kids, and we had just the absolute best time. There's nothing like quality time with family. I had the best week. And honestly, part of the reason that week was so amazing is we went to Holden Beach, North Carolina, and Holden Beach is an old beach town, and the beauty of it is there's not much there. So it was kind of a week of just being in my sweatpants and my bathing suit, basically all week. And it has a really, really wide beach with this kind of like, almost like a dune kind of area where there's a little alcove. And in that alcove, there's always crabs and like different things the kids wanted to see. And it was kind of about a 1.5 mile walk from the house we were staying in to that cove and back. And every day the kids wanted to go at night around sunset to go see the crabs. So I would walk with them and do that 1.5 mile walk. And I must say, this vacation, which normally vacations you gain weight, I gained 0 pounds. And I have a strong suspicion that had a lot to do with the walking we did, a lot of the exercise. And it was just movement. It wasn't actually exercise, but that movement. And for diabetes, movement is essential, right? Exercise, movement. When I talk about them interchangeably, but really walking, is my favorite form of exercise, and I absolutely consider it a form of exercise. And we'll get all into that today, because today we're discussing an essential topic for anyone living with diabetes, and that is the best exercises for diabetes and how to create the perfect routine, because I'm asked it all the time. See, the thing is most of our patients, they focus on it maybe almost too much in a way. I'm often told when someone comes to the office and the sugars are a little out of control that, I was exercising before, now I'm not exercising. And it's kind of one of those things that, yes, it matters, absolutely, but I still, before we even dive into this, I want to emphasize, I want you to focus on diet first. Okay, and when you have that like 80% of the way like down, then let's focus on the exercise. In the beginning, just focus on movement, and we'll get into that, okay? So big picture, before we get into the talk, I want you to understand exercise plays a crucial role in managing diabetes. So whether it's even type 1 or type 2, regular physical activity can make a significant difference in your overall health. And we'll get into why it's so important. But first, this talk is mostly made for those who are type 2 diabetic. There's very special considerations for those who are type 1. So when I discuss things like carbs and insulin and things like this, I don't want type 1 diabetics taking this as advice for them. Well, no one should really take it as advice. It's just more informational anyway. But especially for type 1, this is not a talk for you. You have a very specific talk that you have to do with your endocrinologist. It's not a generalized thing for you, okay? So let's break it down. So first and foremost, exercise helps improve blood sugar control. So when you engage in physical activity, your muscles use glucose for energy, which can lower your blood sugar levels. So the immediate effect can help you manage those daily glucose levels more effectively. It's actually one of the reasons I always say a walk after dinner is the best thing you can do, because it really does bring the glucose down right away. So over time, when you regularly exercise, it also increases something called insulin sensitivity, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But basically, big picture means your body becomes more efficient at using the insulin it actually produces. And this is extremely beneficial for those with type 2 diabetes, where insulin resistance is really the big issue here, right? See, the thing about exercise for diabetics is that it goes way beyond blood sugar control, because regular exercise can also reduce your risk for the complications of diabetes, the things we actually worry about, right? Things like cardiovascular disease, which is a significant concern for someone with diabetes. See, we don't just care about sugar to care about sugar. We care about the complications that happen because of it. So cardiovascular complications are one of the leading causes of morbidity and mortality in diabetics. So engaging in activities that get the heart pumping and really strengthen your cardiovascular system. Now, in addition to these physical benefits, exercise also improves your overall well-being, right? It helps you manage things like mood, stress, boosts your energy levels, helps you manage your weight, which we know contributes to diabetes. So all of these factors are contributing to a better quality of life and can make managing diabetes much less burdensome. And actually, there's a nice study by White et al. That was made in 1999, and it's been researched that long, and probably even before that. But this study, it looked at regular exercising and how it can stabilize blood sugar, reduce the need for things like insulin, medication, and keep the weight under control, and how it lowers all these complications of diabetes like heart disease. So whether you've been newly diagnosed or you've been managing your diabetes, for years, incorporating exercise into the routine is one of the best things you can do for your health. But I will say the number one thing I'm asked by my patients is to know which exercise is the most beneficial and how to structure your routine that works for you around that. And I totally get it. I used to be the type of person who looked up every little little detail. And I will say the number one thing is to just do something you enjoy and do it every day. But you asked the question, and I'm going to get right into it for you. You want to know what the best exercises are for this. So let's dive right in. So today we're going to discuss the various types of exercise that are particularly effective for diabetes. We're going to talk about things like aerobic exercise, resistance training, flexibility, balance exercises, and we'll also provide tips on creating a personalized exercise routine and share practical advice on staying safe while exercising, as well as highlighting some of the latest in research in the field. So by the end of this episode, the goal is you're going to have a clear understanding on how you're going to integrate this into your diabetes management plan and create a routine that helps you achieve these health goals. So let's get into it. So in this first segment, let's talk about how it improves glucose tolerance and insulin sensitivity. So basically your body, when it becomes effective at using the insulin it produces, makes you less of a diabetic, right? So people with diabetes, they have insulin, it just isn't communicating to the cells, it's not letting the glucose go in. For non-diabetics, all it is that your insulin gets secreted when the sugar goes up and it brings the sugar down. It responds very well. That's basically the difference between type 2 diabetes, not diabetes. So in a study by Young et al. In 1995, so this is pretty early on, it showed that regular physical activity can definitely enhance glucose tolerance and improve insulin sensitivity. And this study found that as little as 20 to 40 minutes, 3 times a week of moderate intensity aerobic activity were effective in achieving these benefits. Okay, so that meant you didn't have to exercise every day. It wasn't intense. It was just moderate aerobic activity, 20 to 40 minutes, 3 days a week could really get this job done. Okay, so if your first goal is just to improve your glucose tolerance, right? Just to really improve the insulin sensitivity, that's all you probably need to do in the beginning. So I would just start with something like a brisk walk, something where you're a little out of breath when you're talking to someone for a few days a week if you haven't done that already, okay? Just to improve that glucose tolerance, especially if you're new in this journey, because they do, like I said, want you to focus on your diet, number one. Whenever a patient has tried in my clinic doing the exercise first and all this stuff, it really just doesn't give bang for buck on that A1C the way the diet would. So this is like after you've really nailed a good bit of the diet that goes with diabetes. Exercise also, besides improving glucose tolerance, like you would expect, does improve A1C levels. Okay, so hemoglobin A1C, that's your 3-month average of your blood sugar measured on the hemoglobin molecule, okay? It also showed that it lowered the blood pressure, which is a big common problem with those with type 2 diabetes. Often they have blood pressure problems. And also lowered the BMI or body mass index, okay? And we know 90% of people who have prediabetes and diabetes are overweight or obese. So there's a nice review article by Gray and Buford, and this was in 2019. And in that review article, they looked at different timings of exercises, and they saw that just 30 minutes, 5 days a week of brisk walking, nothing else, just movement, walking. Whenever I say movement, I mean walking, okay? It could be anything. It could be dancing, from with my kids when they're taking their bath. I'm trying to get my movement in. I'll play music on YouTube and just kind of move around a little bit. Yeah, I move like this. I'm not a great dancer. So something like that, walking, dancing, that's what I consider movement, okay? Just 30 minutes, 5 days a week lowered the A1C level, blood pressure, and BMI in those with type 2 diabetes. So it just shows it can really be that simple. It doesn't have to be complicated. And what I find so often is my patients come up with these elaborate routines and they can't keep up with them. And really, it's just movement. And it's great. If you have walking in your commute, great. For me, I don't. I have like the worst commute ever. I'm in my car a lot. I try to make the most of it. And so if you're someone like me and maybe you're a mom or you're taking care of someone in your home, take advantage of things like bath time. Take advantage of cooking time or when someone's watching TV. Try to just move in place, whatever works. It's movement. If you feel yourself getting short of breath, it's working. Honestly, you really could even do something as simple as sitting in a chair and going like this. And I swear, if I did this for 5 minutes, I'd start to get out of breath, right? You could do the exact same thing. So even if you have joint problems or, pain when you walk, this absolutely will help your insulin sensitivity. Now, in these studies, they found not only is it affecting your sugar levels, but it's actually enhancing your mental health, right? And we know that from exercise, right? Enhances mental health, reduces stress, and boosts mood. But see, with the sugar, that's also very important, right? Because cortisol and stress are all related to higher sugar levels. And so if you're doing something that is a mood lifter, that releases endorphins in the body, right? That's going to help you combat depression and anxiety. So they did a study by Jandrain et al., and they found that regular exercise significantly improved the psychological well-being of diabetic patients. And these participants in the study reported reduced stress levels, better mood, overall sense of well-being. And it's very important, not just for your physical health, but also your mental health. And the more important part about that is people don't like to talk about it. And I hate that I actually have to bring it up, but I think if more providers know about this and more patients know about this, they'll be more willing to talk to their provider about it. And that's that diabetics absolutely have a higher incidence of depression, especially type 1 diabetics, but also in type 2. So definitely talk to your provider about that if that's something you're suffering with. And if you are a provider, even if you're a general provider and not an endocrinologist, please, if you have someone with type 2 diabetes, talk to them about their mental health, because absolutely not only is it affecting, them as a person, but also actually their sugar level. So it's very much intertwined. And so movement can really help with that. And so if improving the A1C and improving your mood isn't enough, another thing I want you to focus on is that it promotes longevity of life, okay, by preventing those cardiovascular complications that we talked about. So in a 2009 study by Zendria and al., they found that exercise improved cardiovascular health, increased exercise capacity, and decreased complications in the diabetic patients. So this study showed, in that study particularly, that aerobic plus resistance exercises for 30 to 60 minutes, 3 to 5 times a week, achieved these benefits, period. So again, it wasn't every day of the week. It wasn't even for a full hour necessarily. And it showed just by regular exercise, you could prolong survival and reduce cardiovascular risk. And there's a ton of studies like this. This is just one I happen to like, okay? So when I talk about, exercise with my patients in the clinic or in my coaching program, the clients I'm working with, we talk about it threefold. Physically, how is it improving your glucose tolerance, sensitivity to insulin, lowering your A1C, blood pressure, and BMI? Psychologically, is it enhancing your mood, right? Reducing stress, boosting mood. And then long-term, is it preventing complications? And that's how I look at exercise. I don't look at it like, oh, you're doing this type of workout. I look at it, how is it affecting all three? And if it's not affecting all three in a good way, right, the type of exercise you're doing, then kind of like, what's the point, right? Because the idea is that if you're going to put effort in your day in and day out to do, say, 20, 30 minutes of exercise, you really want bang for your buck. So the main thing is that you have to enjoy it, and hopefully it's something that you enjoy doing, because that means it's affecting your mood, plus it's lowering the sugar. So now in this next section, I want to discuss the different types of exercises that are beneficial for diabetics, because I think a lot of people overcomplicate it, but it's pretty simple. And there's different types. And like I said, anything you enjoy is worth it. Okay, but let's really dive in. So let's start with aerobic exercises. So these are activities that increase your heart rate and breathing, and they're excellent for improving cardiovascular health and managing blood sugar levels. So when I talk about aerobic exercise, this can be as simple as walking. This is my favorite form. I think if you're stressed, go for a walk. If you want to lower your sugar, go for a walk. If you want to listen to music, go for a walk. If you want to listen to a podcast on diabetes, go for a walk. If you just want silence, go for a walk. A walk. It's my favorite thing for patients to do. So it's because it's simple. It requires no equipment other than a good pair of shoes, and it can really be done anywhere. And even if the weather's bad, they have these like walking pads now. I have mine actually in my office underneath my desk. I roll it out, and in the morning, if I'm checking emails, I'm doing a 20 to 30 minute walk before the kids get up. And for me, that's just something that's extremely doable, So in that same review we talked about by Gray and Buford, they looked at walking 30 minutes, the 5 times a week, and they saw, right, it was improving all these things. But one thing that people don't realize is that walking is really just a huge, huge stress reliever. And they've done so many studies even looking at how it prevents things like Alzheimer's, known as type 3 diabetes. If you achieve, I think in one of the studies is over 7,000 steps a day, but the whole point is don't hyper focus on the steps. The idea is just go for a walk. If you're like, I don't know what I'm going to do today, just go outside, go walk. You're going to feel better. Your brain's going to be clear. And honestly, it's just going to make you feel that much better. Another time I love to tell people to walk is particularly when cravings come in, because if you suffer from type 2 diabetes, you'd suffer from sugar cravings, period, right? That can be in the form of chips, that can be in the form of chocolate. It doesn't matter, you're craving these things. And when you're having that, going for a walk really helps clear the mind and boost those natural endorphins that you may be looking for in that food. So I really do think walking is the ideal starting point for anyone looking to improve their sugar and their mental well-being. So another way to incorporate exercise is cycling. This is very versatile. This became really big, I feel like 10 years ago, cycling, because of Soul Cycle and all these kind of things. I definitely did it for my wedding, like twice a day, like something asinine and crazy and just not healthy 10 years ago. And I say that just for relatability, because I know a lot of you, when we get into these routines, we become, obsessed because of things like weight stigma. We become obsessed with our weight, we become obsessed with our sugar, and we go a little crazy. But cycling is something awesome to incorporate. If you have a home Peloton, I know so many of my friends love their Peloton and they do the workouts. I also have a bunch of friends who do, and clients who use Beachbody. I think their bike is slightly cheaper if you want to cycle through that. It's very motivating, and the instructors, the music, all of it can be really, really mood enhancing. So like I said, those 3 things, right? Physiologically lowering the sugar, psychologically helping you, and then basically improving your long-term health. For those with joint issues or diabetic neuropathy, I did mention how you could just do this, right, in your chair, and that's lovely. But you also could swim, okay? And swimming is an excellent choice. So swimming, it provides a full body workout. It's easy on the joints, so it avoids all that high impact activity. And in a 2019 review article, that same review article by Gray Buford et al., they looked at swimming because it increases your heart rate and provides all these cardiovascular benefits, but it's so gentle on the body. And that's perfect because with diabetes, right, there's a lot of inflammation. That inflammation from diabetes affects every single part of your body, including your joints. So if you could have something that's not affecting your joints in a negative way, that's even better for diabetes, right? So that's, all right, so the three things is that, does it lower the sugar? Does it improve your mood? And third, longevity. Swimming is longevity, right? You've never heard, like, how many people have you talked to who had a really big swimming injury, right? Not many. How many people have, hurt themselves doing HIIT workouts or running? You name it, there's an injury, right? So swimming is pretty fantastic. It may not be great for the hair, but wear a swim cap and you're good to go, right? So anyways, the next thing to discuss is resistance training. And I do really, if you can incorporate resistance training, this is super important because when you increase your muscle mass, okay, and we're talking about muscle and insulin sensitivity, muscle is what, when you secrete insulin, uptakes that glucose, right? Because if it's not going into the muscle, it's either going to two other places. There's a lot of places it could go, but the three main places where the glucose is going to go is the muscle, the fat, and the liver. So if your muscle can't uptake the glucose, it's going to go to the liver, it's going to go in the fat. We don't want any of that. So the more muscle you have, the better it's going to do with that. Also, the more muscle you have, the better your metabolism is. And that means less weight gain, more weight loss, and then again, more insulin sensitivity. So it really compounds. So resistance training 2 to 3 times a week is absolutely pivotal. And you can do that, for the muscle mass and glucose metabolism. Resistance band exercises are good, or weightlifting is also good, or body weight exercises all are part of resistance training, okay? So in a study in 2021 by Dupas et al., they looked at resistance training and they saw that not only is it enhancing our muscle mass, improving our glucose metabolism, increasing our insulin sensitivity in diabetic patients, but all it took to do this, right, was 2 to 3 times a week, right, to get the maximum benefit. So just 20 minutes, 2 to 3 times a week, that's all you need, okay? So the next thing I want to look at is flexibility and balancing exercises. See, balancing and flexibility are important for maintaining mobility and preventing falls. And when we get older, that's very big, okay? Especially if you have diabetes and maybe you've had a stroke or anything that's going to affect your balance, right? It's very pivotal that you make it safe, and flexibility and balance are key. They may not have as big of bang for buck on the insulin sensitivity, but I think for longevity of life, it's crucial, period. Now, Pilates is one of my favorite ways to exercise. I always feel good, right? So for a lot of us, Pilates, it really centers us and gives us that good mood enhancing benefit. So Pilates focuses on enhancing the core, strength, coordination, and balance. And in that same review article by Gray and Buford, they found that the Pilates not only improves physical strength, but also does help blood sugar. And that study showed that engaging Pilates regularly can help diabetes overall and the function and lowering the risk of complications. So although maybe it's not going to lower the sugar as quickly as, say, aerobic exercise, it's absolutely affecting your blood sugar levels, helping you build muscle and maintaining longevity because it's focusing on that core. And I know for a lot of my diabetic patients, especially those suffering from obesity, there's a lot of injuries that can happen when we exercise, and that's very low in Pilates. One thing I'd like to add to that is there's so many good ones on the market. So, Beachbody, they have a whole stream of a gazillion things like Bar Blend, which is a mixture of bar and yoga kind of movement. And another one that does kind of a yoga Pilates connection with light weights is Melissa Wood Health. I think her membership's anywhere from depending if you get on a special or not, maybe $12 to $15 a month. But she's fantastic. And she includes meditation in there. Again, I have no affiliate with any of these people. I've just tried them all, right? I'm an endocrinologist who suffered from obesity and diabetes. So I just tell you all the things I know from my patients. And they ask me about every single exercise you can imagine. So I try them all to just give an authentic answer, okay? And so I would say those are fantastic programs because their workouts, in things like Beachbody or Melissa Wood Health, or Tone It Up is another one. They have resistance training. They have Pilates. They have yoga. I love Tone It Up. I think the trainers are Karina and Katrina. They're amazing. Melissa Wood Health, all of them, they focus on this very mind well-being, and when you have kind of a program that can do a lot of that, especially when you're at home and you don't need much, equipment, it makes it doable. Because I think the hardest thing is that when people try to do these harder routines where they have to go somewhere, it can make it quite difficult, okay? So now in this next segment, let's kind of get into how to create your own personalized routine that incorporates these different types of exercise. And we'll talk about practical tips on setting goals and maintaining consistency and monitoring your progress. Okay. So now let's talk about creating a SMART goal, okay? So whenever I do exercise goals with my patients, and this is a very common tactic to use, we use something called a SMART goal. So SMART goals are, it's an acronym, okay? And it goes specific, right? So the S is specific, then M is measurable, and then A is achievable, R is relevant, and T is timing, okay? So a SMART goal would have all these factors in it, right? And when you're doing something like that, it makes it quite easy, okay, to get this done. I'll give you a couple of examples as we go through it. So when you start an exercise routine, you want to make sure it's achievable, it's sustainable. You want to start slowly and gradually build up the intensity during your workouts. See, in that same review article, they even discussed how starting with simple activities like walking for short periods and gradually increasing the duration and the pace will help you prevent burnout and reduce the risk of injury. So the key is you got to listen to your body, okay? Now, another good thing is to trick your body. So you want to incorporate a little bit of variety if you can. So trying to combine things like aerobic resistance, flexibility training, resistance training, all help, okay? In a study by Dupas et al. That we discussed before, they looked at a varied exercise regime and they found that combining aerobic and resistance and flexibility provided the most comprehensive benefits, including improved cardiovascular health, improved muscle mass, improved blood sugar control by doing all three, okay? So a little bit of movement, a little bit of resistance, a little bit of flexibility. And this approach not only kept the workouts interesting so you don't get bored, right? Like no one wants a boring workout, right? But it also ensured that you targeted different parts of your body and your fitness. So as far as how often and how long, right? The American Diabetes Association, which is very similar, by the way, to the Obesity Medical Association for Obesity. So it's kind of nice. So if you're suffering from both of these things, these guidelines overlap a lot, okay? So they say aim for at least 150 minutes of moderate intensity aerobic activity per week, coupled with resistance training 2 to 3 times per week. So what does that look like if you have 150 minutes a week? So say you took, that 150 minutes divided by 7 days a week, it's a little over 20 minutes, right, to reach that goal. Okay, and this guideline was supported by multiple studies by Young et al. And they looked at moderate intensity aerobic activity at 20 to 40 minutes, 3 days a week, and they saw it very much improved all the glucose sensitivity and tolerance. It greatly improved the glucose tolerance and insulin sensitivity. And then if you incorporate resistance training on top of that, these things were boosted even more. So just 2 more 20-minute sessions for that resistance training. So if you incorporate 20, 30 minutes, 3 days a week of resistance training, that made it even better. So what I would have you do to make your own exercise regime is I would create a SMART goal, okay? And I would start with one aspect of the 3 variants, so the aerobic, the flexibility, and the resistance training. And I would work on one of them each week until you can get all 3 in. So I would start maybe with like a walking SMART goal. So 5 days a week, you're gonna walk 30 minutes once a day. You could even do a distance. I'm going to walk a mile and a half, whatever you want to do. Achievable, right? It has to be like, I'm not going to run a marathon, right, overnight. So it wouldn't be, I'm going to run a marathon this week. It has to be something achievable. So I'm going to walk 30 minutes 5 times a week. Very achievable, right? So specific, measurable, achievable. And then is it relevant? Yeah, it's going to help your diabetes. So if you're a diabetic or overweight or obese, this is relevant for you. And then timing, right? I'm gonna do it 30 minutes, maybe Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Sunday. You know what I mean? Something like that. You're getting it very, very specific. And that's what makes a goal achievable because you're envisioning it. And the more you do that, the better it's gonna be. Okay. Now, the other thing people like to ask me about is their monitors, right? I even wore my little tracker today. These things are not perfect, okay? I don't want you to obsess over them, but they are good to keep you honest. I particularly like using them, especially on the weekends when I'm not at work and I'm not very active, because then it gets my butt up, right? So it'll tell me, get up for your stand goal, because I easily could just watch TV all weekend. And I think what's my recent show? I've been watching Tokyo Vice lately. Actually, it's been like an obsession in our household. So anyways, there's 1,000 shows, but you get the idea. You need to move. So these monitors can be particularly helpful. Now, one thing I do want you to monitor though, and not to just like kind of take as lightheartedly, is your sugar level. Particularly if you're a diabetic trying to get off insulin or the sulfonylurea class, these ones that worsen insulin resistance, because these medications like insulin and glipizide and glimepiride, they can lower your sugar, right? So if you all of a sudden start an exercise regimen and it drops your sugar, you could be in trouble. So I really want you to look at your sugar pre and post exercise. And a lot of doctors will tell you eat more carbs to deal with this, but I would actually say the opposite. I would say if you're starting a new exercise regime, see your endocrinologist a ton, okay? Bring the sugars. If the sugar's dropping, discuss how you're gonna lower these insulin levels and or sulfonylurea class of medications. Odds are, if you're not on insulin or a sulfonylurea, you're probably not having low sugar levels, okay? The sugar's not dropping because medications like the GLP-1 agonist or metformin or the SGLT2 inhibitor class, which are the most popular popular diabetic classes of drugs, besides insulin and the sulfonylureas, they don't really cause lows. So you really don't have to worry about taking excess carbs, deal with that, right? Because the whole idea is you're trying to become insulin sensitive, right? If you look at diabetes as a spectrum of insulin sensitive, insulin resistant, you want to become more sensitive, right? And so getting off meds like insulin, sulfonylureas will help you do that, and exercise will help you get there. So use it to your advantage and work really close with your doctor to safely get this off, right? Don't eat carbs and then just, add more fuel to the fire just to exercise, right? Because then you're not getting bang for your buck, okay? And actually, there's a really awesome study looking at continuous glucose monitors, and they're so helpful in giving real-time feedback and helping you make informed decisions about your exercise. And that was by Ferry et al. In 2022. So, and I agree with that. When you see a continuous glucose monitor, you know exactly what's happening with your sugar. So you take the guesswork out of it, and you can tell, am I going to be able to get off this insulin with your doctor? And it's going to be awesome when you do, so keep going. I would suggest actually the opposite of what most people say. I would not necessarily add carbs. I would just meet with your doctor all the time and safely get off medications causing the lows to begin with. So before we wrap up this episode, I want to talk about safety and the newest research on exercise. So the first thing, safety, okay? Before you begin any new exercise, I want you to talk to your healthcare provider, particularly if you have diabetes-related complications like neuropathy. So in a study in 2006 by Yo et al., they looked at how individual exercise prescriptions based on your comprehensive assessment are pivotal, okay? So they may look at certain things and say, hey, maybe this isn't the best type of physical activity for you, and I do that all the time with my patients. I'm very specific. Like, I wouldn't do something like, if you have retinopathy, exercising at night, right? It might be very difficult for you to see. You want to be completely safe in exercise because, again, if you get injured, it's not worth it. Really, really speak with your doctor about getting off the medications and working with them closely. You may even have to see them every week if you're very serious and you're getting really intensive about this. Because if you really are just, focused on your health and you have the time, go for it. Don't just wait till your 3-month visit to adjust your meds and say, oh, my sugar's been dropping to 50, right? That's the worst thing an endocrinologist can hear. When we hear that their sugar's been dropping and no one said anything, it's such it makes you feel terrible as an endocrinologist. You just want your patients to have perfect sugar and be healthy. So communicate. I promise your endocrinologist will love you for it. Now, if you do discuss with your doctor, the first thing they may say is they want to drop your pre-exercise insulin dose, meaning say you're eating before exercise and you're taking a short-acting insulin. They may cut that dose down, and that may be where they start first. Then, after they've kind of weaned off the short-acting insulin, usually they'll start weaning off the long-acting insulin if that's something that's applicable to your regimen. So to start, let's talk about HIIT training, or high-intensity interval training, which involves short bursts of intense exercise followed by brief periods of rest or low-intensity exercise. And this type of workout has gained so much popularity because of its efficiency and effectiveness. A recent study by Barish et al. In 2018, they looked at the role of HIIT in glucose control, and they found that it significantly improved glucose levels in those with type 2 diabetes. And these participants, they performed, just basically short bursts of exercise like sprinting or cycling for 30 seconds, followed by 1 to 2 minutes of low intensity recovery. And they went for about 20 to 30 minutes. And they showed that HIIT not only improved insulin sensitivity, but it required less time compared to traditional exercise. So meaning you're saving on sugar and time. So this is great for someone with an intensive schedule. For me, I love HIIT workouts. But I would say if you do have extreme joint pain, if you have balance issues, it may not be the best option for you, okay? Another study by Francois and Little et al. In 2015, they looked at the same idea, engaged in HIIT, showed significant improvements of their A1C, body composition, and cardiovascular fitness. And just with short nature of HIIT workouts, it showed is very, very good for their metabolism and their overall health. More of the research is really looking at what combinations work best, but there's a lot of different studies looking at this, but generally the consensus is this. What you want to do is combine that aerobic resistance training together to have perfect metabolic control in type 2 diabetes. So not doing just one or the other. And it's easy for us to kind of get into our favorite exercise and keep doing the same thing over and over and over. But it's really the combination that does it. People ask me all the time, what is the best way to kind of do the order of these things? And in the studies, what they found is when you do aerobic exercise, maybe for 30 minutes, followed by resistance training, like weightlifting or resistance band. That combination in that order improves sensitivity the most, increases muscle mass, and reduces body fat more effective than the exercises alone or in a different order. So maybe do a little bit of cardio and then do some weight training. One in 2010 by Sigel et al., they looked at a combination of that, of aerobic plus resistance training, and they showed it's way better than either one alone. So you're not better off doing double cardio is the point. So I think a lot of people say, well, I'm going to run this many miles and I'm going to increase this much running. But really, no. Do the resistance training first. And then if you want to, expand your aerobic horizons, go for it, So the idea is that for a diabetic, you need combined resistance plus aerobic training, and you need to do it small incremental steps to make sure it's safe. and that will get you where you need to be. So let's just summarize everything we've gotten into with actionable steps. First of all, I want you to start slowly, okay? Begin short, manageable workouts that you did with those SMART goals we talked about. Remember, specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, timed. Okay, maybe like 10-minute walk and add 5 minutes each week until you reach 30 minutes 5 days a week. Second, I want you to mix it up, doing aerobic activity plus resistance training plus flexibility exercises, incorporating one at a time over the weeks. Next, I want you to aim to at least get to those guidelines if you can, if it's doable, but to get to the best of your abilities with 150 minutes of moderate intensive aerobic activity plus 2 to 3 times a week resistance training. The next thing is I want you to monitor your blood sugar before and after doing this with a continuous glucose monitor if you can. If not, just use those finger sticks to really understand what's happening with your medications like insulin and sulfonylureas, which can lower the blood sugar, so you can monitor your carbohydrate intake and everything accordingly. Next, I want you to set realistic goals, okay? Don't overdo it and get injured, because then you'll never want to do it again. So my prescription for the Vitality prescription today is really simple. Just move. Then create a goal. Don't obsess over it, and just slowly increment better, because those little habits, those little actionable steps you're adding are what make all the difference in the long run. So I don't want you to get too crazy. Don't obsess over it. Don't do something that's too hard for you and you get injured and then you really hate exercise, because it really can be the best part of your week if you do it in a way that you love. So that's all I got for you. I'll see you in the next one.